Do you feel like you're slowly disappearing in a relationship where the more you try, the more you get hurt, and you can't even explain why it hurts so much? Because when you're in love with a narcissist, the pain never comes from something loud or obvious. No one is shouting at you, no one is hitting you. Instead, it sinks in slowly, quietly, from a look that's suddenly less warm, a sarcastic comment wrapped in a "just joking," or a cold silence that drags on like a silent punishment. And yet, you stay. Not because you're weak, but because your heart is too big. You believe in the goodness inside people. You believe that with enough love, enough patience, everything can be healed. But then one day, you start to realize, love is not what they're after. They don't want someone to lean on, they want a mirror that reflects back to them the image of power, charm, and perfection they've created in their own minds. And so, you become the place they drain emotional energy from without a thank you, without ever truly seeing you. You give over and over until there's nothing left to give. Not because you've stopped loving, but because your heart has stopped feeling. You no longer argue, you no longer cry for help, you no longer hope. You simply grow quiet, and that silence terrifies them more than any outburst ever could. Because narcissists unravel when they lose the one thing they rely on to survive, your emotional reaction. Your silence means the game is over. They no longer know where to stand, what mask to wear. And in this video, we'll pull back the final curtain to reveal what truly happens when the narcissist realizes the thing they fear most. That you no longer belong to them, no longer react, no longer love, that you have walked away with the one thing they can never control, emotional detachment. And it's in that quiet moment when you stop feeling anything at all that everything starts to change, not on the surface, but deep inside the silence itself. You may think the most painful part is the day you pack your things, close the door, and walk away. But the truth is, the real breakup often begins long before you physically leave, when you stop reacting. When you stop crying, stop explaining, stop hoping. You do nothing. You don't need to announce the end. The goodbye has already happened, quietly, inside your heart. You don't need witnesses. You don't need their understanding. All you need is one moment of clarity, the moment you finally say to yourself, "I'm done." What's striking is this. The narcissist never notices the fracture when it starts, because they've never noticed your heart in the first place. They only ever watched your reactions. They were used to you returning after every silent treatment. They were used to your apologies, your emotional exhaustion, your tears over their coldness. But this time is different. This time, you don't react. You ask for nothing. You no longer need them to understand. And that, to them, is the storm. Your silence, not clinging, not chasing, becomes the first sign of danger they cannot interpret, because you're not playing the healer in their story anymore. You've stepped back, watching like a stranger at the edge of a stage you no longer belong to. And this doesn't just confuse them, it collapses the entire emotional strategy they've built. The narcissist doesn't fear losing you. They fear losing control over your emotions. When you no longer laugh to please them, cry when they withdraw, or worry when they disappear, every trick they relied on to manage you suddenly stops working. That's when "you've changed" isn't confusion from someone who loves you. It's the voice of fear. The realization that the game they've been playing for so long no longer has a second player. And then, when your silence stretches on in a way that doesn't match the past, when they realize you're no longer reacting the way they expect, the next thing that usually happens is narcissistic rage. This isn't just anger. It's a psychological meltdown that emerges when a narcissist senses their power slipping. Remember, your emotions used to be their control panel. Now, that panel just went dark. What's fascinating is they won't explode over an unwashed dish or a delayed text. That's just the trigger. What they are really reacting to is the fact that you are no longer emotionally accessible to manipulation. And because of that, their rage can take many forms. Sometimes, it comes as yelling, harsh accusations, or verbal jabs designed to pierce your core. Other times, It's bitter sarcasm, carefully aimed to make you feel weak. Or perhaps most dangerously, it comes as a freezing withdrawal. They go silent, cold, untouchable. Not because they're calm, but because silence too is a weapon. The goal is always the same, to destabilize you emotionally. If they can make you cry, explain yourself, or lose your composure, they feel victorious. Because in the narcissist world, reaction equals control. If you still react, even just a little, they believe they still own a piece of your emotional world. But when you don't react, when you stay calm, grounded, even while they unravel, it's a direct blow to the fragile self-image they've spent years constructing. Their scripts stop working. And when the strategies that have always worked fail, the rage stops aiming outward and begins turning inward. But this isn't self-reflection, it's self-destruction. It sounds like, what if I'm not important anymore? Why isn't she reacting? Suddenly, they're lost on a stage with no audience, unsure what role to play. They're left alone with the one thing they've always tried to avoid, themselves. And this rage, this collapsing energy doesn't reveal strength, it reveals the depth of their fear. Because here's the real truth, the narcissist never feared losing you. They feared losing control over you. And when that control is gone, their whole identity built on manipulation, praise, and emotional dominance begins to crack. And when rage no longer works, when the sarcasm, the silent treatment, or even the emotional storms fail to pull you back, the narcissist switches tactics. This time, they don't yell, they play the victim. They're no longer the one in control, they suddenly become hurt, abandoned, misunderstood. And just like that, the game shifts. You, the one walking away to save yourself, become the one who caused the pain. This strategy is masterful in its subtlety. It doesn't explode like rage. It creeps in quietly, soft, manipulative, and aimed directly at the most compassionate parts of you. Suddenly you hear things like, "I tried so hard, and you never saw it. You've changed. You're so cold now. I just wanted love, and somehow I'm always the one being hurt." But here's what you must remember. This is not remorse. This is strategy. Not because they're mourning the relationship, but because they can't stand losing control over the narrative. When anger doesn't work, they reach for guilt. Because if they can't control your emotions through fear, they will try to control them through sympathy. And all it takes is one moment of doubt, one quiet question in your mind, "Am I being too harsh?" And they've hooked you again. The moment you step back into the role of the healer, the fixer, the one who must make things right, the cycle restarts. Not because they love you, but because you've returned to the only role they ever needed you to play, a living reflection of their ego. The most heartbreaking part is this. Your empathy becomes a tool in their hands. They know you care. They know you carry a deep belief that everyone has wounds and that no one should be abandoned at their lowest. And they weaponize that belief. The victim act isn't a cry for connection, it's a trap disguised as tenderness. Remember this clearly. When a narcissist plays the victim, it's not their weakest moment, it's their most dangerous. Because in that moment, they're not asking for your love, they're demanding your return. And when playing the victim doesn't bring you back, the narcissist shifts once more to a tactic that is softer, more subtle, but often dangerously effective. They start emotional baiting. This time, they're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to make you remember. Remember them. Remember us. Remember the good parts. They don't apologize. They don't ask you to return. They simply drop a bait quietly and wait to see if you'll bite. Sometimes it's a message out of nowhere. "I just heard that song you once sent me. It brought back memories." Or it's an old photo casually posted on their story, a picture of both of you laughing at a cafe on a rainy afternoon years ago. No caption, no mention of you, but you know it's meant for you. Or worse, they text at just the right moment of vulnerability. Ever miss the days when there's new accusation, new demand. Just an open door left ajar waiting for your heart to reach for the handle. But make no mistake, this is not love. This is a test, a psychological check-in. They don't want reconciliation, they want to know, are you still there? Do you still feel something? Do memories still trigger you? Because if you respond, even with a simple, "I remember," they breathe a sigh of relief. Good, the thread is still intact. 1. It's painful to say this, but those sweet memories they send your way are not apologies. They are not epiphanies. They are hooks dipped in honey. They don't need you to fall in love again, they just need you to react. Because a reaction means they still matter, that they still exist in your emotional world. And that's why so many people return after days, months, even years, not because they're still in love, but because nostalgia was enough to reopen an old door. But when you see it clearly, when you recognize the bait for what it is, the silence you give in return doesn't just protect you, it liberates you. Do you know what actually terrifies a narcissist? Not your tears, not your shouting, not even you storming out in anger. It's when you stop reacting altogether, when they bait you and you don't move, when they create drama and you simply don't step into it, when they play the victim and you no longer feel obligated to save them. To a narcissist, your reaction was always their fuel. Whether it was love, anger, confusion, or hurt, what mattered was that you felt something. Because as long as you were feeling, they knew they were still alive inside your emotional world. But when you stay calm, when chaos swirls around you, and you remain centered, that's when they feel themselves disappearing. Every strategy they've ever used, silent treatment, provocation, emotional baiting, guilt-tripping, suddenly becomes useless. Not because they changed, but because you did. You are no longer moved by impulse, by guilt, by attachment. You see through the game, and you no longer care to play. And that, quietly and without drama, is the most devastating blow to their ego. Not because you hurt them, but because you removed their power source. You shattered the one unspoken rule they've always relied on. Power equals the ability to make you react. When you stop reacting, their power dissolves. They don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. They begin scanning the room for new mirrors, new people to reflect their sense of importance back to them. And here lies the bitter irony. It's not your leaving that breaks them. It's your leaving without saying goodbye, without demanding closure, without needing them to understand, change, or validate anything. When you walk away silently, not just physically, but emotionally, you aren't trying to destroy them. You're simply refusing to keep the game alive. And that quiet refusal, that's the moment the game truly ends. And then at some point you'll begin to feel it. They no longer have power. Not because you defeated them, but because you stopped reflecting them. And in the world of the narcissist, that is when the game truly ends. Remember this, narcissists don't live off love. They live off validation. They survive on the feeling that they matter. Every emotional reaction you gave, whether love, anger, or heartbreak, was proof that they existed, that they had impact, that they were the central character in your story. But when you leave them emotionally, not physically, the truth hits them like ice. They no longer have a fuel source to sustain their manufactured identity. Don't expect a dramatic breakdown. There will be no crying on the floor. No, I finally understand what I've done. That is not how they collapse. Their breakdown happens like sand when the tide withdraws quietly, unseen, but relentlessly. At first, they'll move on instantly. They'll find someone new so quickly that it feels like you never mattered. They'll smile, post pictures, say they've never been happier. But don't be fooled. They don't love that person. They're just replacing a broken mirror. And you know what the saddest part is? That new person will eventually become you version 2. They too will be drained, confused, pulled into the same emotional labyrinth without even realizing it. Yet here's the quiet truth the narcissist will never admit. Late at night, when there is no performance to maintain, no new mirror bright enough to reflect them, they will think of you. Not because they loved you, but because you were the only one who ever truly saw them fully, painfully, and still tried to love them. And that emptiness, when no one is left to reflect back their greatness, that is the beginning of the collapse they can never speak of. So don't wait for them to return with apologies. Don't hope for closure in their words. A narcissist cannot admit they've failed, but the moment you stopped feeding their illusion, the moment you stopped reacting, their fall began. And quietly, without revenge, without a fight, you already won. And when you finally see that their collapse doesn't come with a bang but with internal emptiness, when you realize that there's nothing left to fix, nothing left to hold on to, that's when you understand something vital. Winning against a narcissist has never been about making them suffer. You don't need to destroy them. You don't need to wait for an apology. You don't even need to expose them to others. The true victory begins when you stop playing. When you step off the stage they've desperately tried to keep you on. When you let go of wishing to be understood, of hoping they'll change, of craving a beautiful ending, you finally see what you thought was a relationship was in truth just a cycle of emotional reactions designed to keep you reflecting them. A narcissist is not afraid of accusations. They know how to twist them until you look like the aggressor. They are not afraid of your tears or your anger. They live by controlling them. But your calm indifference, your quiet, grounded silence is the one thing they cannot fight. Because no one can manipulate a mind that has awakened. And while the narcissist may never publicly fall apart, never admit mistakes, the truth is, they will remain forever trapped in their own cycle, always searching for someone to reflect the hollow image of themselves they cannot face alone. But you, when you walk away, not just in body, but with a clear mind and a quiet heart, you become free. No need for them to understand. No need for others to validate your story. When you choose yourself, that is the deepest victory. Not in applause, not in being proven right, but in the subtle, soothing relief in your chest when you say, I've stepped out of that cycle, and I no longer need to go back. Sometimes, a clear, silent exit is the most powerful ending of all.